Hi, I'm Dr. Cheryl Bothwell, and this is the Wellness Table podcast. So excited about today's show. We have a lot of great topics. There's been good questions this week on last week's podcast as we talked about Ozempic and weight loss, and the week before, where we were talking about how to optimize protein muscle synthesis. And so today I sort of wanted to tie it together and really talk a little bit about body recomposition. And what this is about is how to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. One of the things I always like to highlight at the top of the show is again, what we see in the Daily Mail. Constantly seeing Ozempic again hitting the news, like which celebrities used Ozempic. And this is that weight loss medication that has helped people lose weight. There's been a lot of controversy about it. And last week's podcast number 25, talks a lot about Ozempic. So if you're interested in weight loss medications, I do a deep dive on that. So check out that podcast at the Wellness Table and any platform, any podcast platform that you listen to. It's the Wellness Table, or also our podcast is on YouTube. So you can watch it at drcherylwellness.com. So you might like that deep dive. So check that out. And also the detailed information about protein muscle synthesis will be in podcast number 24. So today, I really want to hit a little bit more detail of what is body recomposition. What are the challenges that we find when we've talked about yo-yo dieting, Ozempic, when we lose weight really quickly, when we have a calorie restricted diet, and we find people saying that I was either nauseated or I was sick when I was on Ozempic. And when I went off of it, I regained the weight. So those are the challenges that we're seeing with Ozempic. And again, just like to talk to you about what's in the news and what's trending. And Ozempic continues to hit the top of the list. We had almost a whole month on cancer from Kate Middleton's announcement, Princess of Wales, and her cancer journey. And so some of that topic really is near and dear to me because we can talk about body weight. We can talk about, I want to lose weight, and people are desperate to be able to get so that they feel like they look good, and sometimes at the cost of their health. So I liked starting before I even talked about weight loss on the Wellness Table. I really hit in a really heavy way cancer and disease risk because we're finding this surge, this tidal wave that we see in our podcast that we talked about, the tidal wave of cancer that's headed our way. And we're looking at a population of 50 and below, just a real surge in cancer and colorectal cancer. So I want us to be aware of that. So as we're talking about how do we build muscle, how can we lose fat at the same time, I'm always wanting us to consider how do we also turn on our body's natural health defense, and how do we fight disease and live more healthy years. So that's my goal. I'm a doctor of clinical nutrition. I'm a registered dietitian. And my goal is that we can live our healthiest body weight. We can maintain that body muscle. But I find the two groups very separated and isolated as we look at YouTube influencers. It's building muscle, losing fat. I want to lose weight. We see the Ozempic. What medication can I use? I'm stumped. I'm stuck. I cannot lose weight. I'm tired of starving. I want my appetite to be decreased at any expense, whether it makes me healthier or not. And then we see someone that's had a new diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis like the Princess of Wales has just experienced. And then everything stops. And all of a sudden, the body weight becomes really a non-issue. And we're really just trying to fight for life. And so I want to keep it all together, and let's add more healthy years to our life at the healthiest body weight we can get to. And let's don't suffer. Let's have the energy. We want to regain our energy. We want to optimize our metabolic health. And we want to look at the cellular level. What can we eat? How do we live to absolutely optimize our entire body's physiology? How can we boost metabolism? How can we balance blood sugar? How can we lower insulin resistance? So that's what we're here for at the Wellness Table. And again, I see the different groups. I see, I want to lose weight at any cost. I want to build muscle. I want to be a muscle builder. I mean, a lifter. I want to see muscle change. We see this a lot in men and also a lot more in women as well. And muscle is really important and want to be losing fat at the same time. So that's always my challenge with yo-yo dieting, because we see that we tend to restrict our calories and we lose more muscle than we may fat. And then when we regain or we go off, 98% go back to the normal diet, they're back to regaining more of the body fat. And as we do this over the life cycle, over the decades, by the time we're 50, our body composition is the concern. What percentage of our body, how many grams or how many pounds of fat are on our body? And what's that percentage of body fat? And how much skeletal muscle, how much lean body mass do we have? So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how can we pull this together? I really am going to hone in on body recomposition, how to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. But I'm not going to leave out that we don't want to feel hungry. We want to build and regain energy. And at the same time, we want to prevent and beat disease every step of the way, turn on our body's natural health defense, and live more healthy years, age well. So that's what we're bringing you here at the Wellness Table. It's the whole person effect, not just focused on one thing. But today, we're going to start with how people dread stepping on the bathroom scale. I think many of you can relate to it. It can be very frustrating. A lot of people get tired of feeling like I have to give up. I have to go on a diet. I have to give up everything I love. They go into these yo-yo diets. They look for, after hitting the wall with that and feeling stuck, they might ask their provider, their primary provider, for a medication like Ozempic right now that does decrease our appetite. So as we're looking at how frustrating it is to maybe exercise, cardio exercising, we hate it. You might love going to the gym, but you might really not like it. So we're going to talk about, why is your body weight not changing? Why is it so hard sometimes to get body weight off? And if you're exercising, are we doing it right? Are we optimizing or perfecting how we exercise, what we're doing, so that we can enjoy every day? We're not dreading that exercise zone of each day. So today we're going to talk about, explain what body composition is. We're going to discuss the health benefits and how to improve body composition based on science, and how to assess your body composition and how you can start a body recomposition regime that works for you. So there's going to be a lot of details here. So I hope that you really enjoy the podcast, and we'll get into the show. So will the scales tell you how much your total body weight is? It doesn't tell you what your body's made up of. So body composition refers to everything in your body split into different compartments. So 2 compartments are commonly used. We look at fat mass and fat-free mass. Fat mass refers to all the fat tissue in your body, and fat-free mass is everything else. So muscle, organs, bones, fluids. And if both change at once, you might not see any changes in your total body weight. And I think that's what we find to be really interesting and can be very confusing to someone that's working really hard to try to lose weight, because we're always looking at what we weigh, and that's kind of our guide as to our success. That's the marker that so many of us look at. So let's just take an example. If you start exercising, you might gain 2 pounds of muscle in the first month or 2, but at the same time, you might also lose 2 pounds of fat. So because you've been burning more calories through exercise or changes in your diet. But when you look at your total body weight, you're not seeing any change. And that's where the frustration can come in. So if you're focusing on that number on the scale, you might get discouraged or frustrated because your program or your diet isn't working. And this is just an example of how understanding and knowing your body composition is much more useful than just knowing what the scale says and what your total body weight is. So knowing your body composition is really an important information that I want you all to know, and I want you to focus on that versus just hyper-focusing on your total body weight. And Since we can measure both body fat and fat-free mass, we'll talk about how we can do that and how we can assess body composition. There's many methods to assess body composition. Some of them are simple and easy to use, and others can be very advanced and complicated. Like the gold standard for measuring body composition is underwater weighing, DEXA scan, both more advanced, complicated, more expensive. We see these in research, medical centers. But for those of you listeners that are interested in self-assessing your body composition, there are some simple methods that you can use at home that can give you an idea. It's not the exact, it's within a range of what your actual body composition is, and you can see if it's improving. So it really helps us measure change. So some of the examples I like to take from and we're going to talk about what those ways are to measure it. But some of the examples I like to talk about is our Take 10 program, where we've had over 2,000 clients go through a program that I created that is 10 days, fully immersed, 30 meals. We exercise, we do all the lifestyle components. And the goal in the program, in the Take 10 program, was for people to build muscle and to lose body fat. So again, the goal was body recomposition. So we educated during the program what that was, what our goals were. And so people also would want to lose total body weight, and others may have needed to gain body weight. So both spectrums, everybody's here with their own personal goals. Some people would come to the program and we might call them skinny fat, where they're at an ideal body weight or even below an ideal body weight, a very small, thin, lean person, but a high percent of body fat. So we included resistance training, cardiovascular training, along with walking goals. We had a goal of 10,000 steps minimum each day. People kind of work up to it if they could do it. And that was combined with a nutrition plan that included a lot of whole plant foods on the plate, plant protein, healthy plant fats, and also high in protein, high in fiber, complex carbohydrate, not the simplified sugars and processed foods. So the calories were on a sliding scale to meet people's individual body weight goals, body recomposition goals, and what their caloric needs were. The results we found in just 10 days is waist circumference for women dropped on an average of 0.9 inches for women, and for men, it was 1.1 inch. This was research level measuring of waist circumference, and it was using a flexible measuring tape. And our overall average of our entire program over the decade of this entire program was a 1 inch of waist circumference drop in 10 days, regardless of the weight gained, lost, or maintained. So only people that had a very low body mass index, I would say below 18, did we see changes. So we definitely saw a cutting of the waist, and this was measured by waist circumference. As I looked at the results of the program, I also found that people that had the highest waist circumference came with the highest risk factors. My research in my doctoral program at Rutgers was a lot about, I wanted to be able to identify risk with the least amount of testing, nothing invasive. Let's say we don't have any blood work available, we can't do anything. What would be the simplest way to assess a population? And it's perfect for the wellness table now as I'm talking to you in our podcast and video, and you can use your waist circumference as a risk marker for this visceral fat, and it's an indication of how much body fat is on you. And so as we saw waist circumference drop by exercising and moving more, and coupled with a healthy nutrition program, we saw dramatic changes in waist circumference. But we also were doing research level human performance lab. We had a bioimpedance machine, metabolic cart, measuring VO2 max. We found that the fat grams, the total fat pounds, I should say, dropped on an average of 1.5 to 2 pounds. And this is on average. And the lean body mass increased on an average of 1 pound. And this was really unrelated to the body weight on the scale. And of course, if somebody came in and gained a pound of muscle and lost a pound of fat, there were many people, specifically women, that could be very frustrated about that, even dropping almost an inch off their waist. we are programmed to lower the pounds on the scale. So when we're measuring waist circumference and we see a 1-inch drop on average of waist circumference, this is a very good indicator that your fat pounds have decreased on your body. And when we see people losing 1 to 2 pounds of fat pounds was correlating to about 1 inch of waist circumference. We also saw with these numbers now, because we were doing the blood work and we were looking at pre and post numbers, that fasting insulin levels dropped by 30% from baseline to the last day of program. And this is for people that had elevated fasting insulin levels. For people that had elevated fasting blood sugar, their blood sugars dropped on average of 28%. So we really had incredible results. And I really liked and noted and took great note in this, that here my research in my doctoral program had identified waist circumference as a great marker of our visceral fat, our fat pounds, and also looking at fasting insulin levels. And so insulin resistance, should we say. And as we become more insulin sensitive, it just seemed that what we saw in the research is it was a 98% indicator. If a waist circumference was 40 inches or greater for men, 35 inches or greater for women, it was a 97, 98 accurate indicator of having insulin resistance. So we can look at visceral fat. We can look at our insulin resistance levels by measuring our waist. And so I really wanted to share that today, so we can track body composition in different ways by measuring with a flexible measuring tape, starting with waist circumference. You can also measure other parts of your body, hips, arms, legs, chest, and you can track these numbers weekly. So when we begin to see a change in our waist circumference, it's going to tell you that your fat mass is changing. It's going to give you an idea. For example, if you're measuring your arm and you begin to see that you're gaining muscle in your arm and you're weighing yourself and your body weight is going down, it's an indication that you may be gaining muscle in your arm. So as we can look at these things, again, we're trying to do self-assessment. There's some really great ways to do it. So I'm a big fan of waist circumference and measuring and really tracking so you can see the success. A lot of people talk about taking progress pictures. So it's another very popular way to get a big picture look at your body composition. So it's sometimes difficult to notice changes in your body from one day to the next. So taking pictures of your body every few weeks in the same place, same light, same clothing is one way to assess how your body is changing. And it's not exact, but it can give you kind of a general idea of the differences in your size and shape and how you're doing. There are also devices that measure body composition that you can get at home. And these are looking at technology using bioelectrical impedance analysis. And for short, it's, I always call it bioimpedance, but BIA. And this BIA sends a small electrical current through your body to see how much your body resists the current. This information is used to predict your body fat percentage. So what's nice is you can see an actual number for your body fat percent, and they're not exactly as accurate. Some of the handheld ones are within 8 to 10% of the accurate number, but we're finding some of the the ones that you step on and the more compartments of the body that it's measuring from, the touch points, I should say, the more accurate this bioimpedance can be. So I was looking for bioimpedance for what I would recommend, and I've actually just ordered one for a home body BIA bioimpedance machine. And InBody is the one, we had their highest quality one. I would say it was a $20,000 or $30,000 machine that we had in our human performance lab. But I was really excited that InBody has a home scale now. And it's from the same company that I trust. And so I just found this InBody Dial H30, and it's pricey. It's about $349, but my hospital one is, almost $30,000. So I was really excited to see something in that range from InBody, who I trust that they are experts of bioimpedance testing. But there are other variations of home bioimpedance scales in the $100 range. I'm not familiar with some of the other brands. I have confidence in InBody, so that's the one that I would recommend. But I checked some of the reviews and I saw that there are some that are maybe $149, something like that. So I would really highly recommend, if you're wanting to do body recomposition, is to start with knowing where your baseline is and knowing what is your percentage of body fat. So I think having one of these bioimpedance machines would be great. So some of the mandatory tools to help you stay on track that I would recommend for you to have at home: the flexible measuring tape, so you can measure waist circumference, you can measure leg, arms, hip, and this gives you kind of a standard of change, and it helps you see, how you're doing, and it's a good marker. I would, there's skin calipers. Some people like to use skin calipers. I'm not a fan so much of using them, but that is a tool to show you body fat and see the change. Another marker has been grip strength. And so we always had these grip strength testing to see how our grip strength was. And I think that could be a very simple way to see how muscle and strength is improving. And again, a camera, most of us have cell phones. So taking that picture every week, every 2 weeks to see how it's changing. And then I would recommend a scale. Even though we're talking about don't depend on the scale, I think it's important for us to know what our body weight is. If you choose to not purchase a bioimpedance scale, that's totally fine. You can focus on the measuring tape and the pictures, however you want to do it. But I just wanted you to know that some of these are ways that we can measure at home our body composition and get fairly accurate measures of where we actually are today, but it's very good at measuring change. So that's what I would recommend. And again, weight gain on the scale could mean anything. So if you're measuring yourself on a scale and you're not looking at any of these other markers, it could mean so many different things, but it's not limited to pure fat gain. So just because your scale went up doesn't mean that you just gained fat. It also doesn't mean that you just gain muscle. It could be a combination of fat gain and muscle gain. And a lot of muscle gain combined with a little bit of fat loss can result in a body weight increase. And for some people, that's our goal. We're wanting a skinny, fat person. We might want to decrease the fat, and we want to specifically build muscle so that they do not lose weight, and we're actually wanting them to gain weight. And that's something that we try to do, slowly, steady, and to help people have more energy. And if somebody is wanting to lose weight, somebody that's not on the leaner side, somebody that's overweight or obese, then our goals are the opposite. And we're trying to lose body fat while we build muscle and drop the scale all at the same time. And that's what this podcast is all about, that I am going to show you today that it is possible if we combine the right things and we have the right information. And that's what you'll see here on the podcast today. Again, let's look at if the scale has weight loss. That could mean different things, but it's not limited to pure muscle loss or pure fat loss or a combination of fat or muscle loss. A lot of fat loss combined a lot of it could be fat loss that's combined with a little bit of muscle gain. So again, that could be the combination is body weight decreases. So the scale has some shortcomings, but changes in body weight are still a very easy, quick way to track success when combined with the other tools. So I like to see us put all of these tools together. And I think it's just really important for us to be tracking weekly, maybe every other week, monthly for sure. And I think this is one of the ways that we can make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. We understand what our needs are, and it makes us more aware. And I think it helps us stay on track. So at least measuring body composition 1 or 2 times a month is a great way to track your success in body recomposition. And it's so important to understand your start level and know how to set your wellness goals based on what is my, how many pounds of body fat do I have? And what are my goals? Am I on the leaner side? Am I on the less leaner side where I'm more overweight or obese and I need to make these changes? So you'll see today, depending upon where you're at on the spectrum, it'll help us see in this body recomposition spectrum, I should say, or body composition spectrum, it will help you be able to set goals and an approach to weight loss that emphasizes not only losing weight, but gaining muscle at the same time. So here you can see when I see all of the news about yo-yo dieting, here's another new diet, here's a way to lose weight, here's the carnivore diet, here's the keto diet, here's the vegan diet, the diet tribes, I'm beginning to hear them. You can lose weight on Pop-Tarts. You can lose weight eating anything if you have a very restrictive diet. So the results when people talk about, oh, I even dropped cholesterol when I was on this type of diet. If you lose weight, a lot of our metabolic markers begin to align. So weight has a lot to do. Let's say if someone loses 20 pounds, even if they were fasting, if they were on a water fast, however it is, we can begin to, it can be very deceiving because we can say, oh, wow, my sister and my uncle and my best friend, they lost this weight, their cholesterol went down, and all these things happened. And now all of a sudden, this is the ideal diet. And I want us to look at what the science says. I want us to be very aware of the problems with following a specific diet because it worked for somebody else. We want to look at your body, what your needs are, what's your preferences, what's your lifestyle, how active are you, what's your metabolism like, how much muscle, what's your body composition. All of these things matter. And we also want to include in it, like we said at the top of the show, is how do we fight disease and how do we live and add more healthy years on top of just what our body looks like. So I think it's really important for us to take the whole package together. So if we're simply looking at the scale, it is a measure to show how we're changing, but not particularly a measure of success. So if we lose body weight and we lose it too quickly, like over 2 pounds a week, then we begin to hear these stories with Ozempic. Somebody dropped 100 pounds in 8 months. And when you calculate this average weight loss, it's over 3 pounds per week. This is an unsustainable amount of weight loss. And our body goes into sort of a stress mindset of we have to save this human. And our hunger levels will go up. And we'll begin to see as soon as we go off the medicine or we stop this diet, or we will stop it just because our hunger levels are so driven up because of this rapid decline in body mass that it drives hunger at a very high level. And so we find after 8 weeks, 12 weeks, the hunger really, really increases and people are unable to stay with whatever the restrictive diet is, even if it's a medication. So slow and steady weight loss is best for your body for long-term sustainable weight loss. Not shocking your body, should I say, into a stress mindset, because all that's going to do is make your hunger hormone boost. So our whole goal is to not feel hungry and not feel deprived. And some people can white knuckle it and just go with that increased hunger and just deal with it. But for most people, hunger at that level does take over. It will win, and the body begins to gain back its weight. And what we find is we now lose muscle more likely if we haven't lost slow and steady. So we're losing a lot of muscle, a lot of fat, a lot of glycogen storage, the fuel for our muscles, the optimal fuel. And at the same time, what we're finding then is that then the body's just driving us to eat more, quickly regain this body fat as quick as possible. When we see slow and steady weight loss and even taking a little bit of a break from any type of mild calorie restriction, go back to normal calorie, kind of rotate back and forth. So we're slowly losing at the most, I even like 1 pound a week in a slow, steady path, not more than 2 pounds for sure. But I even find at a 2 pound average weight gain, some people can be driven into a stressed, moment where the hunger really boosts. And so even if someone's telling me I'm only losing a 0.5 pound a week and I'm watching them build muscle, they're building some muscle and they're still dropping fat, body mass, or fat mass, I should say. So they're dropping fat mass, they're building muscle mass, and maybe they're only losing on the scale 0.5 pounds a week. That's phenomenal. And now you're not going to see this weight regain. So those are some of the goals that I look for. And how do we do that? We're going to talk about that today, is how can we create that scenario where we're losing body fat, we're losing total calories or total body weight, if that's what our goal is, if that's what our body needs, if we're on the less lean side, and we're gaining body weight if we need to, if we're too lean. But at the same time, we're highly aware of our body composition. Incorporating strength training into our wellness routine is really important. We need to stimulate the muscles to build muscle. So we can eat healthy and have the perfect diet. But if we don't move our muscles, we will not see an increase in muscle mass. And it's the other way as well. We can be doing strength training all day long, but if we're not eating enough calories and eating the right calories and eating enough protein, it's hard for our body to optimize and build muscle from the food that we eat. So we want to do it right. And let's just talk about that today so we can see how do we do it and what are some of the warnings and how can we avoid losing muscle as we're losing weight and get this right. And at the same time, again, we're fighting disease and we're turning on the body's natural health defense, all the mechanisms at our body to help boost our immune system and fight disease. So most people that are trying to lose weight, they also want to be trim and more toned. And I see with women, we don't want this bulky muscle. So I think when we talk about let's build muscle, I think women can be fearful that I don't want to just bulk up. And again, depending upon our genetics and how our muscles look and how they, the shape of them, and for men can be very, very different. But what's really important is that body composition. How much lean body mass do we have in our body and how much fat mass do we have? And that gives us a more toned body. That's going to help us feel more energy. Now we're going to feel like, oh, I can exercise. I'm not as out of breath. I can take the stairs and I don't feel as worn out. These are the most important ways for us through the decades of life to keep our energy and to hit our 80s strong with good body muscle. Because especially for women, we begin to see them gain weight in the menopause years. And sometimes I've thought, well, maybe that's a little bit protective to have an extra 20 pounds. Because we begin to see this catabolic effect happen to a lot of women when they begin to hit 75, 80. And now all of a sudden, the people that are living into their 90s, 95, I'm just trying to keep body weight on them. Muscle is beginning to waste. And so as we're looking at through the life cycle, maintaining muscle and having a healthy body composition is really key to aging healthy and aging well. So that's really our goal, is for all of us to be at a healthy weight, a healthy body composition at every age of life. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how can you build muscle and lose fat at the same time. A lot of people on the internet think the answer is simply that you can't. And so they focus on that if you want to build muscle, you have to bulk up and then adding body fat and muscle together. And then when you're ready to lose that, you can do this, what they call a proper cut, and trim the fat at the expense of losing some muscle mass. And that's been the process. But I believe if you want to gain muscle and strength as fast as possible, and you want to be, you're going to need to be in a bigger caloric surplus. And that's the way it goes. So basically, if you want to gain muscle and strength as fast as possible, let me just get that straight here, that you need to be in a caloric surplus. So how many calories do you need to maintain your current weight? Now I want to build muscle. So we do have to think about adding some calories to be able to do this. So I see people that start exercising, but they don't add the calories. And that's going to be very hard for the body to build muscle, depending upon your body composition at the time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the quickest muscle gain will come at the expense of more fat gain when people are just adding more calories. So it's inevitable. There's got to be a better way. So in fact, it's perfectly possible to build muscle without a large surplus of calories, or even without any surplus of calories at all, because of fat tissue and muscle tissue, they're separate systems. So it's really possible to build muscle while we're losing fat in most scenarios. There's a few that it is not possible, but for most people, it's a very realistic goal. So I'll tell you how that works, and we'll dive into that just a little bit more. So let's quickly look at the situations where recomposition makes the most sense and how to understand it. So to be clear, when we say body recomposition, body composition is how much fat mass and how much fat-free mass. So how much muscle do we have? How much fat do we have on our body? Body recomposition is when we're referring to a reduction in body fat percentage alongside with increasing our lean body mass, so more specifically muscle mass. So in women and men, this is commonly achieved in these four scenarios. So I'm just going to highlight them as we go along, because you might find, actually I've got probably three scenarios here. You might find where you fit in this. So the beginner, this is someone that is not currently working out and what I would determine as skinny fat. So someone's at their ideal weight or below it, and they have a low muscle mass percentage of their body weight, and they have adequate body fat store. So they can build muscle and lose fat at the same time quite easily. So what this means is their calories can be pulled from the fat stores to fuel speedy muscle building process with just basic progressive resistant training and a reasonable diet. So the body is most primed for growth when resistance training is still new. It stimulates muscle growth. And to fuel that speedy muscle building process, the body can easily tap into body fat stores to yield this impressive recomposition, making it even more efficient. So when I see skinny fat, this is someone that does have adequate body fat store. Somebody that's very anorexic, this would not be the case. So if they don't have muscle mass and they don't have fat store, we have to add calories and we have to look at the nutrition to even think about building more muscle. But when we think about skinny fat, this is someone that's low muscle and has adequate or even a high percentage of body fat. The body can use for fuel that body fat. It can tap into it and use it to recomposition your body and shift from losing the fat to building the muscle. So that's a very efficient system and works very well. Now let's describe the next scenario is a detrained athlete. So this is somebody that's been maybe very fit. They've exercised a lot in their life. They're at an ideal body weight and they've been for most of their life. And they have a significant amount of muscle, but then they stopped training. Maybe they got an injury. Maybe there was something that happened. Maybe they lacked motivation, but they stopped regular exercise. So these people are very similar. It's hard for them to see it, but they're very similar to the beginner who they are able to build a lot of muscle very quickly and makes this body recomposition very possible. They have a powerful muscle memory effect. So recomposition is common and it's very possible in someone that has been an athlete and stopped for a period of time. So there's hope for this group of people as well. And if they've trained to exercise efficiently and if they understand the key nutrition goals that go hand in hand with exercise to reach their goals of body recomposition, this person can be very successful. Now, if we look at 70% of the population in the United States, they are overweight or obese with a body mass index of, say, 27 or above is overweight. A body mass index of 30 and above is considered obese. And as we look at these numbers, these are people that have a very large energy storage. So they have a high percent of body fat. They have a lot of fat pounds on their body. And it's simple for them to eat a calorie deficit meal plan and still have plenty of stored energy to fuel the muscle building process. So as a result, when obese individuals start to train, they start to eat right. They begin to do resistance training a couple days a week. They begin to move. They begin to follow our guidelines for optimal exercise and movement. It's very common for them to build muscle and lose fat in the very same week. So this is body recomposition at its best. So someone that's overweight or obese, take hope and know that this is very possible. And it's actually essential if you want to lose weight and you want to keep it off for a lifetime. So even if you go on Ozempic, we still need to be doing these things. We still need to be eating well. We still need to be moving more. We still need resistance training. We need to stimulate and stress our muscles a bit to get muscle building effect. And as we begin to build muscle, we're going to see our metabolism increase. And as these things begin to happen, then we have more energy. And then we begin to see insulin resistance improves. And now we don't feel so sluggish and sleepy, and our blood sugars regulate. And we see all of the rest of the metabolic factors improve. And from the cellular level to our body composition, we begin to get well. And this is the problem again with yo-yo dieting, restrictive dieting, rapid weight loss, because we're dropping muscle and maybe some fat, but we're going to drop in the first, say, 8 to 12 weeks, more muscle and glycogen storage and fluid from our body. It's going to look great on the scale, but our body is getting into a weakened immune system and it will just drive hunger. Within 8 to 12 weeks, you're going to be right back to where your body scale was before. Slow and steady weight loss, I promise you, it's the key. Well, we're gaining muscle, losing body fat, and losing total body muscle in small amounts, even 0.5 pounds a week. Ideal if you built muscle that week and you lost body fat and you still lost, say, 0.5 pounds, 1 pound a week. This is perfect because now your body is not going to be stimulating the hunger hormone to regain, go into this state of stress and protect and save our body at any cost. And so I think that's really important as we look at weight regain. Our body has a set point, and boy, it's tough to get it below it, but this is how we do it: slow and steady, building muscle. Now we're starting to build our metabolism, and we're moving more and we're feeling better, and we start to turn the tide and feel better. And remember, this is the important way to keep the weight off so that you not only look good, but you also feel good. And this is about long-term health. So when the weight's regained, remember, it just drives the hunger, and you will most likely regain fat and not muscle mass. And over the decades, this becomes a real problem as we become much more of a high percentage of body fat and a lower amount of muscle mass. So again, in take 10, our average numbers, and this was just 10 days. And of course, we were feeding, everybody was exercising together, and we met everybody's needs individually. A very trained multidisciplinary team, all giving it their very best. But just to show the possibility, people that needed to lose weight, they were losing 1.5 pounds of body fat and gaining a pound of muscle. And this was even women, and still would show 1 or 2 pounds of weight loss for the week. And again, there's some fluid loss. And I was always worried if somebody was losing too much. And that was me on high alert. My goal would be gain the 1.5 pound, lose the 1.5 pounds of fat pounds, and gain 1 pound of muscle mass, and maybe just lose a 0.5 pound of weight loss for the week. That would be the perfect scenario. And again, that doesn't sound super exciting, and that's not going to sell well on an infomercial, I know, but it's the honest truth. So understanding body recomposition, let's go one layer deep. So if you turn to the internet to define body recomposition, you'll most likely find an answer something like body recomposition is to build muscle while losing body fat, and it's a great definition. But for the sake of clarifying in more detail here on the podcast, I'd like to expand the definition to include other scenarios that will all account for the body recomposition. We kind of hit them at the top of the show, but you can build muscle while simultaneously losing weight. And so this is that straightforward type of body recomposition and the most commonly considered scenario. So in a perfect world, this is the most ideal outcome, that you look more muscular, more trim, and more fit. And this is an ideal route for body recomposition. Another is you build muscle mass while you maintain body fat mass. So in this scenario, you aren't actually losing fat mass, but you're lowering your total percent of body fat because you're building new lean muscle. So let me give you an example. If you're currently 150 pounds and you're 20% body fat, this means you have about 30 pounds of body fat or fat mass on your body. And after you follow our plan, and after you start changing, you're moving more and you're eating well, you build 5 pounds of muscle and you lose 0 pounds of fat. So you have built muscle and you've neither lost or gained any fat. So now you weigh 5 pounds more, you're 155 pounds. You still have 30 pounds of fat on your body. And because your lean mass has increased, even though you still have the same amount of total fat, now your body fat percentage has dropped. So your 30-pound mass against 55 pounds of total body weight, now you're 19% body fat. And this is how that body recomposition can work. So you went from 20% body fat to 19%, even though you technically didn't lose any fat mass. So this is just, again, showing you how the scale can be deceiving, but you can build muscle. You're getting leaner, and therefore this is a scenario of what we would consider an example or a scenario of body recomposition. So you would aesthetically look better. Muscle gain with the absence of any fat gain still leads to a more muscular, tighter, more fit appearance. You're going to like your pictures. If you're taking those pictures, they're going to improve. And even your waist circumference, you will see improvement. Another scenario here is you can lose fat while maintaining muscle. So now we're going the other way. You aren't building any new muscle here, but you're losing and dropping your body fat percentage by getting leaner. So to clarify, let's look at the numbers. So if you're 150 pounds, that's your body weight, and you're 30% body fat, so 45 pounds of your body is fat mass. After implementing the information in the membership, you do the nutrition and you do the movement, you follow the healthy habits, and you lose 5 pounds of fat, but you neither gain or lose muscle. Now, here in this scenario, you've lost fat while maintaining muscle. So after the fat loss, you now weigh 5 pounds less, you're 145 pounds, and you have 40 pounds of fat instead of 45 on your body. So once again, your body fat percentage has lowered. So now instead of being 30% body fat, now you're at 27.5% body fat. And this is an improvement. We will see health outcomes improve from this percent of body fat loss, and you maintained your muscle mass. That is an example of body recomposition. And again, because your body fat is decreased and you held on to your existing muscle, you're going to create an appearance of both leaner and more muscular for your overall aesthetic of your body. And so this is how we look at body recomposition. And it's typically when people lose weight, they will lose a combination of lean mass and fat mass. And so our goal is, how can we stop that and what can we do about it? So there are multiple factors so that we can look at how we can prevent losing both muscle mass and fat mass, and as we're losing total body weight. And so I think it's really important for us to at least maintain muscle mass and make sure that we're losing pure fat mass or nearly pure fat mass as we're looking at body composition. So body composition is very complex, and it's much more complex than just looking at the scale and losing weight or gaining weight, as we've kind of reviewed here. And it's important to really accurately track your progress over time. So looking at the tools we talked about to measure your body composition and track your changes over time. And we talked about those at the top of the show. And I think those are some things to, if you're wanting to get started with something like this, that's where I would start. And people that come through the Dr. Cheryl Wellness membership, we set goals and we kind of move through so that they understand this. But I wanted to break it down at the Wellness Table podcast for those of you that are really interested in it, because I think this is a super exciting topic. So it's important for us to look at body recomposition and how practical it is and how can we do it. So the first thing you need to recognize building muscle is the driving force of body recomposition in any scenario. So you can have the most optimal diet in the world. You can eat 5,000 grams of protein every day, and you still won't build much muscle without this progressive training stimulus. And I think that's really important. That's pointed out a lot as we look at a lot of the different influencers. And I totally agree with this philosophy. We have to stimulate that muscle to grow, but we still need the protein. But it's just saying that eating more protein and more protein without that training stimulus, it won't have the same power of effect. One of the influencers, I was looking at one of their videos, and it was very interesting because they use the analogy of a car. And so if we think that our training is an engine and our nutrition as the gasoline to fuel the performance, without the engine, the car doesn't move regardless of the fuel's quality. And again, me being focused on nutrition, I like to say that even when I looked at my smoothie, my Wellness Daily Super Smoothie, that it can add a turbocharge to the engine with the right nutrition, though. So yes, the engine would be a great analogy of our muscle mass. But I think as we look at nutrition, we do have the ability to increase the turbo or the horsepower of that engine and provide fuel. So I would just sort of add to that description. But I think it's a good way for us to look at our muscle is the engine and our nutrition is the fuel for the performance of that engine. But knowing that it's also proper nutrition and good nutrition, enough calories, the right amount of protein, carbohydrate, and fat. And this is the way that we can turbocharge that or increase the horsepower because we're adding muscle mass. So it boosts metabolism and it really helps us just have more energy and optimizes our body's overall health. So I think it's really important for us to look at that when it comes to training, you want to focus on a progressive overload. And so again, using proper techniques and putting all these fundamentals into place, it's kind of like fine tuning so that you can find your right advancement level. We have the wellness score. And in the wellness score, for those that just want a simple do it yourself recommendation, if you look at the free wellness score in our membership, it's a more detailed wellness score. It's your diet and wellness. It puts your 10 foods, beverages, and habits together. I have a score of 20. So I would be setting a goal. I'm measuring my body composition on a regular basis. And I like to then add that that's why I created the wellness score. So now we can measure how we're doing with fueling our body and adding horsepower to our engine. And resistance training, 2 times minimum a week is recommended, and you get a point for that on the score. Cardio training, I want to talk a little bit about cardio training. There's HIIT training. A lot of people like to jog, run, swim, any of the things that you really enjoy doing. But for some people, this high intense cardio training just boosts hunger even further. And so a lot of people, we find a lower cardio training level, a lower impact cardio training it doesn't boost the hunger so much. There are a lot of people that when they get into a more cardio intense training that they really feel hungry. Again, the more we move, the better it is for our body, the more we burn calories. But let's don't underestimate the power of walking. And it is the king of cardio, really. And I think that just walking and enjoying life, it's powerful. So resistance training combined with 10,000 steps, 14,000 steps if you need to lose weight, that's a formula for success. So you can do more if you want to do more high intensity cardio training, but these are some of this is where we see in the science that works very well. And again, it's on the wellness score, so you can check those numbers and see, am I scoring on my wellness score for my movement and my exercise? Because again, we want to build muscle and we've got to move to do that. And then we need to optimize nutrition. So within that score, we're also looking at the types of food we eat. And we'll talk about that here as we go along. So next, you need to decide your primary goal in body composition. So like we said, the first is understanding that we have to stress the muscle to build the muscle. And our next is to decide what's our goal in our body composition. So we need to measure our body composition and look at, do we need to build muscle or lose body fat? And many will want to do both at the same time. So it's important to establish what your goal is. So if you're currently lean, and let's say that when you measure and you get a bioimpedance scale and it says that your percentage of body fat is 18 to 22% of body fat as a female, or if you're a male and it's 8 to 12%, this is currently lean. And now I would recommend that your primary goal would be to build muscle. So this is kind of how we can look at where do you sit. If you're currently not lean, let's say you're overweight, mildly overweight. If you're not so lean and you're somewhere between, let's say, a 25 and 30% body fat as a female, 15 to 20% body fat as a guy, then maybe your primary goal might be to lose fat mass. And so this is where we can look at where we sit in our body composition, and it can help us create our personal goals that work for us. And when we start to see a female and a percentage of body fat, because it always tends to run higher in females of say 35% or more, again, we really want to focus on losing fat and not losing muscle and building muscle as we go. And the higher the percentage of body fat, male or female, it's even easier to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Because when you have more body weight on you, it's kind of like people wear these weighted vests as they're trying to walk, and maybe ankle weights and things like that as they're trying to stimulate the muscles to build more muscle. Somebody that's 30, 50 pounds overweight already has that on them. But as it begins to lose, we want to keep driving that. And so this is where we can see where we can actually, within our own body, burn the fat mass on our body and build muscle simultaneously and lose total body weight. So as we look at calorie intake, we want to look at, as we look at what our goals are, we want to center around first knowing what's our maintenance calories. So once you've decided your primary goal, I want to lose fat, I want to build muscle, or I want to do both simultaneously. Next, we look at how many calories do we need to maintain our current weight. And so if you're currently lean and your primary goal is to build muscle, then you should enter into a little bit of a slight calorie surplus, say 5 to 25% of your maintenance intake. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. So if you're leaner, less advanced, but you're more genetically fit for building muscle, you might get away with a bigger surplus of calories. So if the range is 5% to 25% of calorie surplus that we add to the calorie maintenance, you could push up maybe to 20%. For those of you that are currently lean, but you gain weight really easy, you might want to start at the 5% calorie surplus and slowly build up and see how your body does. And this is how we can make sure that you're getting enough calories to build muscle and also not gain fat. We also want to look at increasing protein, our dietary protein. And so we need those branched chain amino acids. We need these essential amino acids to build muscle. So we need to stress the muscle to build it. And we also need to eat dietary protein. And I got into a deep dive on that on the podcast number 24, and it was optimizing muscle protein synthesis. So a lot more detail there, but I would just say in general, I would recommend approximately 1.4 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. And this is where your healthy target body weight is. Or if you want to break that down and you don't want to be dealing with kilograms, this is about 0.73 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So you could just take your ideal body weight again and combine that with strength training and resistance training at least 2 times a week. So we're doing a little bit of a slight calorie surplus in a range of 5% to 25% above your maintenance calories. And then we're increasing the protein intake to about 1.6 grams per kilogram of your ideal body weight. Now, if you want to gain muscle and you're on the lean side again, we want to set a goal of gaining, say, 1 to 1.5%, even 0.5% of our body weight each month. So if you're a leaner male and you come in starting, you're a beginner at exercise, all of this is new, you have been sedentary, and you weigh 150 pounds, gaining 1 to 1.5% of your body weight per month would translate to gaining about 1.5 to 2.25 pounds each month. And this would be lean muscle mass that you're gaining each month. And that would be really working towards the goal. So that's how we look at what's our goal, what does your body need, where's your starting point, and how do we help you reach your goals. So the question is it possible to build muscle mass without a large calorie surplus or a calorie surplus at all? And the answer is very simply yes. And again, it depends on your body composition. But I think it's really important for us to stress that our body can use our fat mass and build muscle if we're restricting calories at the same time that we are stressing our muscles and stimulating and doing resistance training and moving our body enough. So again, the examples of the Take 10 program, people were gaining a pound on average of muscle in 10 days and losing 1 to 1.5 pounds of fat. And that was profound. And depending upon whether they needed to gain weight, it was irrelevant of their weight status. So showing that this resistance training, this stimulus for muscle growth, and coupling this with nutrition, a nutrition plan, it really works for body recomposition. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that nutrition plan is. But first, if you're someone that's currently not lean, your primary goal is to lose weight, you would want to enter into a slight calorie deficit of, say, 10 to 20% off your maintenance calories. So again, we would calculate your maintenance calories to maintain your weight, and then we would slash 10 to 20% off of that intake so that we can meet these goals, so that we're not losing muscle mass and that we just are losing body fat mass. And so I think if you have more fat to lose, more body fat to lose, then the bigger calorie deficit could be closer to the 20% less calories than your maintenance calories. But be careful with this, because this is where we get that backlash of boosting hunger, and it's not sustainable for our bodies. And some people's bodies are more sensitive to this, and it hangs on to weight. I hear people say, I just look at the calories, I look at the food, and I gain weight. And so people can feel very frustrated. And this is genetics. This is how much they move. This is their metabolism. And some people, when we have very low muscle mass at the starting point here, it can be really tough to just turn this corner to start building muscle and dropping fat. And once it starts rolling, you'll begin to see in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, we saw it even in 10 days, that people really began to feel better and feel like moving more. So typically when we look at decreasing calories, we take what's our total maintenance calories needed to lose 1 pound a week, and that would be 500 calories a day. And that's just the typical recommendation that registered dietitians are taught in our undergraduate program, pretty basic nutrition 101. But when we look at slashing, say 10 to 20% of your total daily calories for a slower, steady weight, I see it works really well for building muscle and losing fat and dropping total body weight and body recomposition, at its best. Here's some of the exceptions in the overweight, obese person. So if you're currently well above the 25% body fat for men, 35% for women, it might be wise for you to enter a larger calorie deficit. So you might want to go in a range of 20 to 30% calorie deficit to facilitate a faster loss and maybe feel some encouragement with progressive weight training that drives muscle growth. So regardless of your primary goal, experience level, current body composition, all these scenarios require an estimate of your calorie maintenance. So you need to know how many calories you need to eat per day. And it's important to know how many calories you burn in a day. This is calorie maintenance. And then once you determine your calorie maintenance, then you can determine your caloric goals based on these numbers. So a lot of times people just want to see the math, but I want to just say that we start with looking at the three components of metabolism. And the first is basal metabolic rate. And this is how many calories that your body needs to perform all its basic functions, essentially at rest. And it usually, we estimate that's 50 to 70% of our daily energy needs. And our energy needs is what we short reference for our calorie needs. So for a little bit of math here, if you like math, the Mifflin St. Jour formula for males and females, it's kind of the standard. We have many different formulas that we have looked at to calculate needs. So I'm just going to tell you the formula and you can sort of rewind it and kind of get it. But for women, your body, your BMR would be 10 times your weight in kilograms, plus 6.25 times your height in centimeters, minus 5 times your age in years, minus 161 for women. Complicated, I know, but that's how we calculate it. And for men, it's 10 times the weight in kilograms plus 6.25 times height in centimeters. Very same things until we get to the end. We subtract 5 times the age in years, but we add 5 plus 5 for men. And for women at the end of the formula, it's minus 161. So this is how we would calculate the basal metabolic rate. Now, for those that want to do simple math, this is the easy one. If you're 160 pounds, if we look at our total body weight in pounds, we can multiply it by 10. So the example is if you're 160 pounds, your basal metabolic rate would roughly be 160 pounds times 10, about 1,600 calories. So this is a rule of thumb to calculate how many calories you need to maintain your current body as it is. Now, there are other variables like gender and age and height and weight and medical conditions and all of these things, but I'm just giving you a rough rule of thumb. Now, in addition to this, we want to look at, again, the primary goal. So as we're looking at, okay, now how many calories do we need? As we're looking at, if I want to lose fat and I'm a beginner to all of this and I haven't been exercising regularly, I'm a sedentary person and my body fat percent is, say, 18 to 20 plus for men and for females, 28 to 30 plus, then a calorie deficit of approximately 20% below this maintenance level would be recommended. And again, it just sort of works down so that we can look at a calorie surplus if we want to build muscle and we're in a lean body weight and our percentage of body fats are on the lower side, say 18 to 22% for women, 8 to 12% for men, then we want to build muscle, we can do a calorie surplus of 25% above this maintenance. And that can help us, that's sort of our maximum to help us be sure we have enough energy to build muscle. If we want to lose fat and build muscle equally, and we're a beginner and we're sedentary and we're a male, 12 to 18%, and a female body mass index of 22 to 28, then we can look at calorie maintenance. So we would actually look at what your basal metabolism rate is, what's your activity level, and hold you at maintenance, have you eat healthy and exercise more and not add calorie surplus or a calorie deficit. And if you want to lose fat, and that's your primary goal, and you're an intermittent, maybe you moderately exercise, and you're a male with an 18 to 20% body fat, you're a female with greater than 28 to 30% body fat, recommending a calorie deficit of approximately 20% from this maintenance. So it's kind of just giving you an idea of how we're hitting the calorie maintenance and what we'd recommend for you to reach these goals. Now, the other thing that we have to factor in is a second component in your metabolic rate, besides just your basal metabolic rate and how much we have to surplus or deficit or maintain to reach your goal, is how much do you move around. So for most people, physical activity makes up 20 to 35% of their total calorie expenditure. So these values can be lower if you're more sedentary, and they're higher if you're more active. And I like the term NEAT. That it's a component of metabolism, and it's not limited to the number of calories you burn while you're formally exercising, like lifting weights and cardio and walking, but it includes all your daily activities. So like typing at your desk and bringing groceries to the car, and essentially parking further out and walking into the store from another distance. Stairs, you have stairs in your home or you don't. So we look at this NEAT metabolic needs as a non-exercise activity. So high levels of NEAT is advantageous from a fat loss perspective, and it's believed to be largely responsible when we see the massive differences in total metabolic rate between different people of the same age, the same weight. So yet they're eating different calorie amounts to maintain the same body composition. So did you ever wonder, when you have a friend who's exactly the same age as you, same body weight, same percentage of body fat, you can be eating different of 1,000 calories and you're still just as lean, and maybe they're gaining weight or vice versa. So it's probably the difference between how many calories we can eat. This NEAT, or these non-exercise activities, play a big part, not just these bouts of exercise. So we have to look at all the things that we're doing throughout the day. Again, walking to the stairs, having a standing desk. How can we increase our total daily burn from these non-exercise activities? And essentially, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I really liked it because it's not just this bout of exercise and it's a checkbox, and then we can sit all day because we're sitting at a desk or we're watching TV the rest of the day, and we did our 2 or 4 times of resistance training, and we went to the gym and we did 30 minutes of cardio, and then the rest of the day we sit. So there's a lot of people that say, and it's really important to move throughout the day and mix it up. And a lot of these people are in the camp of walking is the king of cardio. And I really do see the benefit of that for people that are super active and not just focused on their single bouts of exercise on 4 days a week or 5 days a week. The other thing is, when we're looking at our calorie needs, we look at an activity multiplier. So as we're looking at our lifestyle and training, if somebody's sedentary, but they're training 3 to 6 times a week, and they work at a desk job, they have very little activity outside of their bout of exercise, then adding an activity multiplier to their basal metabolic rate of that estimate, and then we've dropped it or multiplied or added a deficit depending upon what your goals are, like we just reviewed, then we'd add an activity multiplier of 1.2 to 1.5 of whatever those total calories are for maintenance. If somebody's lightly active and they're training 3 to 6 times a week, they work a desk job, they might take their pet for a walk most days in addition to lifting, we'd add an activity multiplier of 1.5 to 1.8 to determine their calorie needs. Moderately active, and they're training 3 to 6 times a week. Maybe they work as a full-time on their feet all day long. Somebody that plays tennis occasionally. Again, if we're doing these activities in addition to our training of 3 to 6 times a week, then we'd add an activity multiplier of 1.8 to 2.0. And super high active, training 3 to 6 times a week, but their job may be a construction worker, or they're hiking on a regular basis, or they're training for an event, we'd add an activity multiplier of 2.0 to 2.2 to their calorie. So that's almost double the calories so that we can offset it for these calorie needs. The whole idea here is to get enough calories so that we don't lose muscle. So that's the goal. So remember, you cannot exercise the diet effect away. So again, if you're exercising perfectly, I should say, and you're not eating well, you're not eating enough calories, you could see some muscle loss. So if you're exercising a lot and not compensating with the right nutrition plan, then you won't reach the goal, and vice versa. So we can be eating really well. And again, we're fighting disease and we're doing all these things, but it's got to be coupled and combined with moving and building muscle throughout our life cycle. So let's just remember that. And I want to also, again, talk about that walking is the cardio king. I like that statement a lot. And again, just talking a little bit about a lower intense cardio impact. Because what we're finding is that when people are doing these higher intensity training, let's say they're jogging for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, or they're doing HIIT training, it's great. We see metabolism improve and mitochondria growth and so many great things. And it's one of the options to do in our program. Low intense cardio training, like walking 10 to 14,000 steps a day, will decrease body fat. It'll increase metabolism. But here's the clincher for it is it will blunt hunger. So low intensity can blunt hunger. And just remember that there are people, and quite a few people, that higher intensity workouts really boost hunger. So if you're one of those people doing tireless cardio, you don't even like it, and you're just doing it because you think this is what you have to do to boost your metabolism, to decrease body fat, you don't. And so that 14,000 steps a day was really optimal for decreasing body fat. So someone that really wants to lose weight, walking, it's powerful, 10,000 steps minimum. Now, we're also seeing major health benefits for someone that's older or somebody that has any other limitations. Even 7,000 steps a day is amazing. Taking a 10-minute walk after a meal, it improves insulin resistance. The more, the better. But I wanted to find the sweet spot for how many steps were great for decreasing body fat and increasing metabolism and still not boosting hunger. And it was about 14,000. So I'm going to throw that out there. That 10,000 steps is a big thing to get. When you're hitting that 14, you're really going for it. So walking is a fat oxidation exercise, and it is appetite blunting. So a great combination. And just thinking about what we can burn 10 calories per kilometer per kilogram of body weight. So an example of that is if we walk 6 miles, we weigh 176 pounds. That's about 86 kilograms. We walk 12,000 steps. We can burn 800 calories that are mostly fat. So this is where walking really can make a difference. Walking can hit 2-3 birds with one stone. That's a really bad analogy because I love birds. But anyway, we can burn calories. We can improve muscle tone. We can boost metabolism. We can meet our body composition goals, but we can socialize. We can walk with a friend. We can learn. We can be listening to a podcast. We're getting sunshine. So I think it's really a great way for us to just think about walking is powerful and can really help us with body recomposition. And then we also have to add to our BMR the thermo effect of food. So depending upon the types of food that we eat, it really makes a difference. So that's why nutrition has another element to it, that the types of calories and the types of food and macronutrients that we put in our body affects how it digests, absorbs, transports, and stores. So the foods that we eat. Protein has 4 calories per gram, and it's the highest thermo effect, which means it burns the most calories while being digested and absorbed. Carbs have 4 calories per gram, and they have kind of a medium thermo effect. And fats, 9 calories per gram, and they have a low thermic effect, which means they burn the least calories while they're digested and absorbed. So I think that's just something that just pointed it out because I thought it would add well into this podcast. So when I'm talking about how to estimate, I have also thrown out the term ideal body weight. I just want to throw this in that there is a rule of thumb for determining ideal body weight. And I've given you a rule of thumb. I don't want you to confuse it for calculating calories. So about 10 calories per pound of body weight. That's the calorie rule of thumb. This is your ideal body weight rule of thumb. Super simple. And so we want to feed the ideal body weight. So when we're calculating protein needs, I like to look, especially with protein, at what's the ideal body weight. And so for a female, we estimate 100 pounds for the first 5 feet, and then we add 5 pounds for each inch over 5 feet. So if somebody is 5'4", then we would take 100 pounds and then the 5 pounds for all the 4 inches that they're above 5 feet, and that's 20 pounds. And so we're going to say that an ideal body weight for this female that's 5'4" is 120 pounds plus or minus 10%. So the range for an ideal body weight would be for this female is 108 to 132 pounds. So that means when they start to get over 132 pounds, if somebody is 150 pounds, a female, I will feed at the 132 pounds. If somebody weighs under 108, let's just go there, then I look at someone as under their ideal body weight. And so I'd like to see somebody in that range. That's a healthy body weight range. So those are the goals that we have. So you can calculate your numbers based on your height and see what's your ideal body weight range and spend your life within that range ideally. I think when we get over it, we want to start a little bit of moving more, calorie deficit, talking about building muscle, losing fat, and keeping our body weight into this healthy ideal weight range. For men, ideal body weight, rule of thumb, 5'7" male, let's say, theirs is a little bit different. The first 5 feet is 106 pounds. And then they add 6 pounds for each inch above 5 feet. So a 5'7" male ideal weight, body weight is 148 pounds, plus or minus 10%. So their ideal body weight range for a male 5'7" is 138 to 163 pounds. And again, based on bone structure, muscle mass, many variabilities, but this is just a rule of thumb. So now I want to get back to how many calories do we need? So to clarify, if we have a 5'7", 150-pound male, the basal metabolic rate is going to be approximately 1,639 calories based on this calculated formula that I gave you. And based on the calorie rule of thumb formula, multiplying the weight times 10 calories, it's going to be about 1,500 calories for calorie maintenance. So if this is someone that works a desk job, but he walks his dogs most days and he decides he's in the light activity group, we add a multiplier of light activity. So we start out with 1,639 calories calculated. Our rule of thumb is 1,500. So that's kind of a range. And then the multiplier is 1.6. And so as we apply a 1.6 activity multiplier to these calorie needs, the guesstimated maintenance calories is going to be in a range of 2,400 to 2,622 calories. So what we do then is we test that. And that's where we start recommending that many calories for somebody that their goal is to build muscle and they're at an ideal body weight. And so that's where we would start to make sure that they're eating those calories and then track and see how it works. And if we need to add more calories, if the activity multiplier needs to be increased, and we take it from there. So the core goals for currently a currently not lean person is to lose fat. So to do this, we're combining resistance training, these daily walks, really powerful for fat oxidizing and, dropping fat mass, while moderately decreasing your calories. So if somebody is not lean, they want to lose weight, we'll look at what's their total calories, like we just calculated for this man. And then we would do a calorie deficit of say 10 to 20%. We would increase the protein intake. There's kind of a sliding scale, but the sweet spot's about 1.6 grams per kilogram of your ideal body weight. And we just use that rule of thumb. So go back to that rule of thumb of how to calculate your ideal body weight and calculate that and multiply that ideal body weight to, in kilograms, 1.6 grams of protein, or if you want to do it in pounds, 0.73 grams of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. We want to also increase your fiber intake, add healthy plant fats to your meal, and decrease these highly refined processed foods. So these are some of the best ways to drop body fat and gain muscle while you're losing body weight. The next thing we want to look at is the macronutrient breakdown. And this, we start with targeting the protein. So this is the most important macro for body recomposition. Podcast number 24, Optimizing Muscle Protein Synthesis. We did a really deep dive on how much protein we need, the quantity, the quality, and what it does, the branched chain amino acids, the essential amino acids, and the types of protein. So I urge you, if you're interested in this topic, to listen to that podcast. But for this podcast, I want to focus on what you need and how you could identify how much protein you personally need because you're trying to start a body recomposition regime. So I recommend a sliding scale model for protein based on your lean body mass. So the leaner you are, the closer you should be to the 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram or that 0.73 grams per pound of lean body mass. The more body fat you have and the lower your calories, we can push the protein intake a little bit higher so that we're trying to lose fat, build muscle. So focus on your total grams per day based on your ideal your ideal body weight. And this is for us to be able to build lean body mass. So let's take an example. A female that weighs 150 pounds, 68 grams, is about 20% body fat. Using this sliding scale for protein intake, since this female is on the leaner side, I would recommend her protein intake more toward the high end of the intake of protein at 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. Her ideal body weight, I use the rule of thumb, is 135 pounds, 61 kilograms. So I would suggest that we take 61 kilograms of body weight and multiply it by 1.6 grams of protein. And that comes to 98 grams of protein. And I would round it up to 100 grams of protein daily. And this is where we land at an ideal body weight of a woman that's ideal body weight of about 135 pounds and coming in at about 100 grams of protein daily. And I think we see a lot of that as a recommendation. This is enough protein, it's safe, and it's advised for those looking for body recomposition. And again, we want to eat calorie deficit if we're wanting to lose body fat, but we need to hold the protein grams so that when we're restricting calories and we want to lose weight and we want to lose total fat, the goal in body recomposition is we keep the protein grams at that minimum. So again, I think that's, let's look at a female weighing 150 pounds, 58 kilograms, but her body fat percent is 35%. And that's just, I want to show the difference between a leaner female and a female that's less lean with a higher percent of fat mass. And we'd use that sliding scale for protein intake since this female is not on the leaner side. And I would recommend a protein intake more towards the lower end of protein, maybe the 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. Her ideal body weight is 135 pounds or 61 kilograms. So I suggest that we take that 61 kilograms and multiply it by either 1.2 or 1.4 grams of protein. I'd probably start with the 1.2 in this case, because again, we're trying to build muscle, but really want to lose body fat and weight. So this would put this person in at about 85 grams of protein for the day. So I think our range of protein for both of these people, you can see the range is between 85 and 100 grams, and that's kind of the sliding scale. Same weight, but one's a little bit leaner and one's less lean. Again, with a body fat percentage of 35% or above. That's where I pull a little bit back on the protein, and I'm doing that because of body recomposition. But somebody that's leaner, I really want to make sure we hold that protein up, that daily protein up. So I'd like to hit that 100 grams of protein. I think someone that's less lean that was hitting 100 grams of protein in a day would be fine as well, but it's not as critical for this person. 85 grams would be totally adequate for this female that is less lean at a 35% body. The next then is we determine the fat and carbohydrate intake. I'm really focusing on the protein today. So I set my fat intake in a 25% of the total calorie intake. Sometimes it'll hit 30%, but when we're getting our protein up, we want healthy plant fat. And it's important for us then to fill the rest of the calories that we need with whole plant carbohydrates. And we really want to limit processed carbohydrate. And so even as we're looking at eating these whole foods, we also want to focus on feeling full, and we want to shut down hunger. We want to have plant proteins that come loaded with fiber. And again, plant protein, all proteins shut down hunger. Fiber shuts down hunger. But when we combine enough of our plant protein, we're building muscle at the same time. Now we want to look at food sources, but I want to hit here that the plant or the food sources of these total grams matter. The type of protein, the type of carbohydrate, and the type of fat. It's not just the total grams. So with protein, I really like to look at it's almost 100 grams of protein a day is kind of our minimum with women. And many men as well. But we also want to look at the fiber. And so I really like to see that we're having at least 35 grams of fiber in a day. I often say, again, it depends on how many calories we eat. If somebody's eating 1,000 calories, I still like to see 25 grams of fiber. But once we get to 2,000 calories, I don't know very many people that can eat 50 grams of fiber, because I've often said my recommendation is 25 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. But it doesn't get realistic if somebody needs 2,500 calories to 3,000 calories a day. So my lower limit of fiber is 30 grams. And the upper limit is if you can hit 40 grams, great, of fiber a day, but most people literally are too full. And remember that as we're pushing protein up, all the animal proteins are deficient in fiber. So this is where I find the challenge, as on the nutrition side of it, is that I want to optimize protein. And I think a lot of times we have lowered our protein intake because we want to make sure we have enough fiber, and we don't want to just push, let's say, a carnivore diet or a more animal protein focused diet because we see it's deficient in fiber. Then I began to see people supplementing with fiber, and you can absolutely do that. But I just think it's really important if you're on a carnivore diet, if you're on a keto diet. I'm seeing influencers go through what they buy in the store and what they're eating each day. And I'm just looking at where's the fiber. And again, you can lose weight on these types of diets. You can build muscle on them. And again, you can body recomposition with animal protein. You can do it on Pop-Tarts, really, as long as you're getting enough protein. But at the end of the day, we're not also turning on our body's natural health defense system. We're not treating and preventing disease and adding healthy years to our life. It's the whole package. How do we have a healthy gut? So as we're fueling the engine, the muscle, and that's what we want to do and optimize that with nutrition, I think it's really important for us to make sure we're properly hydrated, making sure we're getting the sleep that we need. We build muscle when we sleep. So we want to stress our muscle as we're moving. And then as we sleep, we're looking at, it's a very underrated factor, but it's really important in transforming our physique. We get growth hormone surges in the night. So there's so many things about a whole balanced lifestyle, sunshine, all of the components, and you'll see all these in the wellness score. I'm not going to hit all of them today. Jess will keep doing this as you'll keep hearing more at the wellness table. But I just think it's really important for us to look at animal proteins are deficient in fiber. You can absolutely reach goals of building muscle. It will shut down hunger, and you can lose weight, and you can have body recomposition. But what it will not do is build a healthy gut and this microbiome in our gut that needs these prebiotics that are in fruits and some of these whole foods to build probiotics. Our gut system works very well when we give it the fiber that it needs. We need soluble fiber to shut down hunger as well. It lowers cholesterol, it balances blood sugar. So again, we're a whole person. So the conundrum that I get into when I see a lot of the different diets is I see, yes, you can accomplish this goal, but my goal is to accomplish all of them. And that's why you'll see that I've kind of hung my hat on every meal. Let's have at least 2 plant proteins, for sure 1, but I'm really pushing more protein now. And I'm seeing that I'm really pushing this to adding 2 plant proteins, beans, legumes, nuts as part of your plant protein. We can also supplement with plant proteins. They have like the vegan whey protein that's mixing rice protein powder with a pea protein powder. People have their different opinions about soy, but it has all the amino acids. It's a phytoestrogen. We'll talk about that. We've talked about phytoestrogens in many other podcasts, but I really want to focus on a non-genetically modified organic fiber, edamame. These are plant proteins that are loaded with fiber. And now on top of that, today I'm just creating a video that's going to come out, and it's about it's a Waldorf cottage cheese bowl. And I use plant proteins and I combine it with cottage cheese to get this delicious full meal that's got 38 grams of protein, but it's also got 12 grams of fiber. So that's really what I'm looking for in healthy plant fats and the omega-3 fatty acids, the amino acid structure that we need to build muscle. But also I have apples and grapes and the skins of the apples and the resveratrol from the grapes and carrots, the beta carotene to fight cancer. It's the whole package. So again, I cannot stress enough that I wanted to talk about body recomposition, but I really hope that the take home message is that we understand that we're still a whole person, and let's just don't get crazy on the protein. I'm hearing recommendations for 200 grams, 225 grams of protein for these elite bodybuilder weightlifters. And I look at it and say, with plant protein, we cannot max out too much protein. We don't have problems. Plant protein works for the body. Animal protein, it's deficient, I should say, in fiber. It's just like as we look at different types of carbs, we can have ultra refined carbs and we can have whole plant foods that have a very different response to the body. So let's get a nice balance of protein types so that we can make sure that we're keeping the fiber up to, let's just shoot for a goal of about 30 grams, 35 grams of fiber in a day. let's hit if we're summarizing it for somebody that doesn't want to do any of the calculations, 100 grams of protein, 30 grams of fiber. That's something that if you want to get that from food, you're going to be needing to eat whole plant foods, whole plant carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables. The essential fats that I used in my Waldorf cottage cheese bowl today was flaxseed. Again, lowering cholesterol, balancing blood sugar, building muscle, decreasing inflammation. It's really got the power to create a healthy microbiome. It's the whole picture, turning on the body's natural health defense. Well, we're getting a healthy body weight and body recomposition at its best. So it's most important for us to kind of put it all together. And I think it's just really important for us to look at the diet and wellness score. It's on the site. You will see it at drcherylwellness.com. I'll have a link to the free score, but I'd love for you to start with taking the free score. Go through this podcast and you'll be able to see, where am I at right now? Where's my starting point? What are my goals? What's my body composition right now? You'll see the tools of how to measure them. How many calories do I need? Do I need to be a calorie deficit? Do I need to maintain my calories? Do I need to have a calorie surplus so that I can build more muscle? What are my goals? And then what are the healthy habits? How can I make sure I'm coupling, stimulating these muscles with exercise, the right amount, and also a nutrition plan that works very much for you. Another thing I just wanted to hit on again, as we look at sleep, it's important. This is when we build muscle. I want to do a podcast on growth hormone and the surges of growth hormone, but we're also looking at the anabolic window. Is this really a thing? I'm seeing my last podcast, I talked about like maybe I'm getting one over that we need to replenish within 20 to 60 minutes after exercise. But I have always recommended within 2 hours because we get this growth hormone surge. So I'm going to study that a little bit more because I'm seeing new research on it. And I did not do a deep dive in that to respond to it today. But there is a nutrient timing. And I think it's just really important that if we've exercised prior, or if we've eaten prior, our body, we've got this 24-hour pool of amino acids. Do we actually need to eat at a specific time, at this much time before we exercise, this much time after we exercise? And is this anabolic window a thing? And I will just leave my comments that I have always recommended to wait 2 hours and then right at that 2-hour time. Don't go past that 2 hours, but right about 2 hours, hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours, we add a growth hormone surge. I'm going to see some of the latest research on that just to see. But other research is showing a 20 to 60 minute window that's clear. So in my podcast number 24 on muscle building, I said, maybe we've got to look at this new research. So we'll look at that more, but timing is important. There's also supplementation. So it's really important if we're trying to get this much protein that we may need to supplement. And I have always been one that says I want to eat it from the food. But I think when we start getting these crazy high numbers of protein, it's why I've never pushed them, because I'm looking at adequate protein that we can actually hold in our stomach and eat this much food and get it from whole plant foods. And again, I like at least, 2 plant proteins at every single meal, and then add to it the animal proteins that you like, some of the leaner proteins. And again, I like some of the leaner dairy. I like the cottage cheese, like some of the Greek yogurts, and I do them with the low fat. So that can work very well to turn off hunger, build muscle. But again, let's don't leave out the plant protein that we're combining with that. Another protein powder that's been called the vegan whey is a combination of rice and pea protein. I talked about it a little bit earlier, and that gives us a full spectrum of the essential amino acids that we need. It has a high leucine content. There's also whey protein. You can eat this any time of the day, and it can help you hit your total daily protein goals easier. I just want you to be aware that these protein sources are deficient in fiber. So yes, I think it's better if you're really working out and you're doing all of these things and you're doing 14,000 steps a day and you're really trying to build muscle. Let's really meet our protein goals. And some have recommended casein protein right before bedtime to have some merit as well. That is not something that I would say that I recommend. I think that, again, I am in the camp of whole plant foods, as more plants on your plate, more whole plant protein, but getting this protein, this healthy plant fat, and these whole carbohydrate foods, getting them from foods, from whole foods versus a supplement. But there is a place for these supplements, and I'm not opposed to them at all. I use them many times for people that I just need to build muscle, or somebody that doesn't have an appetite and we sort of need to rebuild. I'm going to do a future podcast on creatine, so I am not going to hit it here, but I know that it is very much recommended by the bodybuilders, the lifters, 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day. And I will do a deep dive on where I stand on creatine in a future podcast. Caffeine, again, kind of helping people work out more demanding workouts. Again, we can get addicted to caffeine, but some people feel that caffeine should be on the short list for increasing strength and kind of prolonging the time to fatigue when we exercise and increasing acute fat oxidation. So again, I have not done a deep dive on where I stand or set my position on where I stand about caffeine with exercise, but I'm not opposed to it. I just be aware that the more caffeine that you drink more regularly, the more you're going to need it. And so we recommend some caffeine breaks. Otherwise, it's not going to give you all those benefits when you're lifting if you're just at your status quo base level of caffeine that you need, since you're now needing more and more of it to have the same effect. So this is a summary of body recomposition. We've hit a lot of things, a lot of details, but I want you to know that as we look at optimizing muscle protein synthesis, losing body fat, I want you to go back, and I'd love for you to look at podcast 24. I think you'll find it really interesting because it will take a deep dive on these proteins. And then podcast 25 is when we're talking about losing weight while we build muscle. So both of those podcasts you might find very interesting as a backdrop to what I covered today. And today was just really kind of bringing it together to look at how does that affect you? Where's your baseline? How can you do this yourself at home and feel like it's safe and that you're doing the right thing? So if you're looking to take your nutrition up a notch, you want to start body recomposition regime and you don't want to do it alone, I do want you to know that Dr. Cheryl Wellness has a membership where I can guide you every step of the way, where you can start losing body fat, building muscle, achieving a healthy body weight. If you're ready to go and you don't want to do it alone and you want some accountability, and you also want to combine that you're fighting disease and you're living more healthy years, I invite you to join my Dr. Cheryl Wellness membership. It's just $37 a month. And I've done this so that so many people cannot afford to get nutrition therapy, medical nutrition therapy. If you have diabetes, if you have cancer, any of these things, or if your goal is body recomposition, I'm here to help you every step of the way. We have all the tools in the membership resources. It's like a digital diet and wellness program. There's a master class. You can set your wellness goals, and you can use the wellness score to be able to track your success as well as other markers that you set goals of. So this is a really great accountability and a way for you to get started. So the first link in the description box below will be a link so that you can head over to Dr. Cheryl Wellness and check out the membership. Click the membership tab and you can learn more about my membership and how you can join it, and you'll get exact step-by-step guides for setting up your calories and macros and a list of foods and healthy habits to focus on. Like I said, a masterclass and a whole series on turning your health around and training for body recomposition. So it also includes some customer service and any of the questions I'm here for you to ask along the way. And so I'd love to see you on the inside, but also if you're enjoying the Wellness Table, I'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast. You can listen to this podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also listen to it, or watch it, I should say, and watch the video version of it on YouTube at the Dr. Cheryl Wellness, and it's in the playlist of the Wellness Table. So I hope that if you enjoyed this podcast, that you give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more video, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps grow the show, and I really appreciate all of your support. And again, leave your comments below. I'm here to answer any of your comments. If you have other topics that you'd like me to cover, just add them in the comments below. And I'll see you all here at the next one.